Hey guys, welcome to Night Owls. As you can see, we're back in Fayetteville, so hope the mic works okay and everything, and hope you can hear me fine. But it's good to be here. And we saw the movie Dune tonight, the David Lynch movie back in 1984. It was originally released, and we're going to discuss that a little bit. But if you're new, thank you. Welcome to Night Owls. We do this most Sundays. It depends on our mood. And we tend to focus on culture stuff, but you can, if you have a question, just send it in. There's power chats, there's super chats on YouTube, on Rumble has rants, and there's stream elements. So whatever is, however you want to do it, that is great. We love to hear from you. And let's see here. We had a good weekend. This weekend, our friend Dave and his lovely wife, they live near Fort Smith, and we had a Mexican dinner, and then we played a card game called Phase 10. It's the first time I've ever played that game. It's fun. What did you think about that, Sasha?
I like it. I told you I used to play all the time in high school.
Yeah, I know you told me, but you didn't tell the
Yeah.
audience. So, yeah, so it's not a hard game, but it's just a game you can talk about other things and relax. So it's pretty cool. So I did enjoy that. So we had a good time there, and it's been cold, but it's going to warm up now. So we're excited about that. And we saw the movie Dune 1984. And a little background, I read the book. It's one of my favorite all-time science fiction books. I think Sasha started it, but you said you didn't like it, Sasha.
No, I thought it was boring.
Did you get all the way through it or just
No, I
stop?
stopped. I read like 150 pages and I stopped.
So that's kind of our background between us is I like the book and series, and Sasha didn't care for it. It's considered one of I think is rated number one of the science fiction books out there, Frank Herbert. And he did a whole series. I only read the first one. I know my father, who's passed away, he loved Dune.
Brandon said I think he read them all.
Yeah, I guess the author died, and then his son took over writing the series, and it really went downhill.
Oh,
And,
really? His son took over?
yeah, and they were shitty after he died.
So how many did he write?
He wrote quite a few. I don't know. I'd have to Google it. But then the last ones, even my dad didn't care for it because it wasn't the same author, just because it's his son. And it we kind of a little bit happened, I think, on Game of Thrones. On the HBO special is really good when they went over the source material, but then when they got beyond where he wrote, it was just more Hollywood writing. And I think the same thing happened with the Dune series. If you're not familiar with Dune, it's a complex book. It talks about it has religious themes, political themes, and some science fiction themes that are quite interesting that apply to today. For example, it was ahead of the time where they didn't they saw the risk. They didn't call it artificial intelligence, but they saw the risk to computers. So they had a law in the universe. They limited what computers can do, so they had, I think they called it a minute or something like that. And these were people that were genetically modified to uh, be super intelligent. So they acted like a role of a human computer. And let me see if I got the name right. Men. Oops, sorry about that. I think that was the name of it, the character. Um, they have super mental abilities, and then they also have the spiritual um, sect. It's almost like the Catholic sect or the like the nuns, the Bene Gesserits. They were like a female priesthood that was trying to genetically engineer a Messiah. So it had a lot of interesting themes in there. But getting back to that one about, let me look that up. I want to get that name right. Yeah, Mentat. A Mentat was the role of the Mentat that was developed as a replacement to the computers of thinking machines because there was a thought that the thinking machines could replace humans and they saw that as a danger. It's kind of funny because this was written years ago and we're seeing these potential now with AI replacing people and what they can do. And so there's a whole backstory about that. And so that was one of the themes they discussed. They didn't discuss that so much in the movie as they did the book. And one of the things I would say about the movie is I don't know if you could quite understand it all unless you were familiar with the book.
I didn't understand a lot of it.
And so unless you read the book, it kind of assumed that you knew the basic universe and how this all was. And the whole Dune 1984, they've done a couple others. They did a mini series, I think, on the Sci-Fi Channel that I didn't watch. And just recently, a few years ago, they released a Dune. I saw it with Brandon here, in fact, and it was it was okay. It was more faithful to the source material, but it was kind of boring. And the one with David Lynch, when I first saw it, in many ways, it got bad reviews, and I get it. But the more I see it, and I hadn't watched it in a long time, the more I like it. The more he kind of got the vibe of Dune without having, because what do you do when you have such a huge novel, a lot of complexities? How do you put that in a 2-hour novel? And the answer is you really can't do that. It's just almost impossible. You have to be able, it's be a mini series. So I think David Lynch put his unique style on it, and he put his vibe on it, and so that's what it was happening there. What are your thoughts on that, Sasha?
I thought it was good. I don't know. I fell asleep through part of
Obviously, you
it.
didn't care for it if you fell
No,
asleep
I
in it.
liked it, but I was still nodding off through part of it. I mean, it was kind of slow, but it did have a style about it. It was better than the book.
Yeah, and the music was by Toto, I believe.
Yeah, total.
Yeah.
And then I think it said Brian Eno did one of the songs.
I would say one of the things that there was some, let me just go over some top of my head, then I'll try to drill down in some of the movie, what I thought about it. From a diversity point of view, is a movie they couldn't do now. There wasn't there was one extra that was black. I just happened to notice, but you could barely notice him. It was about a 99.9% white movie,
Mhm.
and they had an interesting theme. I didn't really notice at the time, but I think the Baron was he was the evil one. He was a homosexual, and he
Mhm.
was a real sadist. And again, you can't show homosexuals in that way anymore. And the women, although they were kind of strong, but they were still the princess and so forth. And the hero was a white man, Paul Mubab. He became sort of the hero. Oh, we got a super chat, Dylan. The Ben Gesserit were like the Jesuits. Yeah, Jesuit. Yeah, Gesserit. Yeah, Jesuit. And that's what they're based on. I think so. It's sort of loosely based on that, but it was just a sisterhood. It was
Mhm.
that, in fact, Paul was the first one that could drink the water of life. All the others died. And so I think that was sort of interesting about they were trying to do through breeding to bring like the Messiah, and that they had a big religious aspect of this too, breeding in the Messiah. And so there's a lot of different themes that came from the book that didn't really show in the movie. I mean, they touched on it, but if you didn't read the book, I don't think you would be up to speed on that. So that was any other thoughts you had, Sasha?
I don't know. Like I said, I didn't read all the books, so I didn't understand a lot of the stuff.
I just watched the thing for the first time. Do you like the thing?
I did. The
Yeah,
old thing from like the 80s, because they remade that too. And I think I saw the remake too, but I think the one from the 80s was better.
yeah. So
You liked the thing, didn't you?
yeah, I did.
It was real creative. Well, then there's an even older one though, wasn't it? It came out what in the 50s or 60s, and then they remade it
Yeah,
in the 80s, and then they remade it again about I don't know 10 years ago.
yeah, yeah. That was true. Um, so that was sort of like the whole feel of the movie. Some of the themes I thought was interesting. It was there was a spice. A lot of people saw it as kind of a metaphor to what was happening in the Middle East, where oil represented the spice represented oil, and they had the Fremen, and they kind of had their religion. It almost seemed like Islamic, where they're waiting for their Messiah or Muhammad, and their names Paul Mudabi, and they were kind of primitive, but they were trying to fight the colonial powers, and so I kind of got that vibe a little bit too.
So what
Um,
year did the book come out?
the book came out in the '60s, I believe, and we have Timothy K. Hey, Timothy, let me just put my headphones on. I'm sorry we don't have the splitter, so I'll just listen. Go ahead, Timothy.
Hey, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
I can't believe that Sasha called Dune boring. It's anything but boring. It's like the greatest epic sci-fi novel in all of history.
I think the novel is more to uh, for guys that like it. I don't know if women
I
would like it.
agree. I agree with
Yeah.
that. I think the first 50 pages are really rough going with Dune,
Yeah.
but once you get beyond that and you understand what the novel's about, it just becomes an incredible adventure on an epic scale. And the only thing I can compare it to really, which George Lucas copied, is Star Wars. Because Star
Yeah.
Wars has a lot of Dune influences. Of course, Tatooine, the desert planet, Luke Skywalker, Paul Atreides, the
Yeah.
savior with occult powers.
Yeah, I can see that a little bit. I think Dune was a lot more in depth though
It was
than
deeper,
Star Wars. Yeah, because Star Wars was
far more
kind of
deep.
like it's more of a kids movie, whereas Dune I think was had a lot more themes and everything.
I disagree that Star Wars was a kids movie. I think it's an all ages movie, to be honest with you. I thought it
Well,
was
I
a very
enjoyed it. Yeah, I
serious
love Star
sci-fi
Wars.
film,
Yeah.
like the original version that came out in 1977 without, the subtitle and New Hope. When I saw
Yeah.
it when I was a 10-year-old kid.
Yeah, yeah, it was good. I did love Star Wars, that's for sure.
But with Dune, you do get a lot of the Islamic themes, and also it gets a lot of negative commentary from the left because of the white savior theme. Because Paul Atreides is a European aristocrat, and he becomes the leader of this tribe of color, the Fremen,
Right.
that overthrow the Imperium, the Empire. So
Yeah,
there's a
I
lot
would
of.
say the Fremen, at least in the movie, were all white in this movie. And they
Oh, in
have
1984, yes, yes, I agree
yeah.
with you. Not in the newest version of it, though.
No, right. Yeah, so
Yeah, yeah.
I don't really see that as necessarily as a white savior, at least in the book. They were just a different people.
No, I saw it very much as being that the Baron Harkonnen, the Emperor, the great houses of Landstrad, that there were European colonial powers and they ruled over this
Yeah.
empire of color. That's the
Yeah,
way
I
I
could see
saw it,
that.
really.
Yeah.
But um, I agree with you that when I first saw Dune, I was incredibly disappointed as someone who read the novel. I thought it was a failure, but the more I've watched it, and I've watched it numerous times, it's really grown on me. It's a really great movie.
Yeah, it is.
I've
When I first
completely
saw it,
changed
I
my
did
mind.
yeah, me too. It's a movie that I've watched later, it grows on me, and when I first saw it, I was like, "Eh," because again, you can't really get all the source material in a 2-hour movie, but
No,
I thought David Lynch, he had a style about it that really worked better than all the other adaptations that I have seen.
I completely agree with you. I think he got the vibe of Dune, like you said. But it wasn't the movie he wanted to make, interestingly enough. He's disavowed it, which I bothers me because it is a good movie. But he was forced to make a different kind of movie. They basically told him, do Star Wars.
Yeah,
Have like laser battles and,
yeah.
big conflicts and this sort of thing. But David Lynch wanted to make a different type of movie, and there's elements of that in his version of Dune, but it wasn't the movie that he really wanted to do, and you can't do it in a single movie. You just can't. You literally
No,
can't do
no,
it. I
you
mean,
really couldn't
ideally, it
do it
should
all.
be a
Yeah,
trilogy because
yeah,
the Dune novel itself is broken into 3 books. The first book is like Dune World. The second one is Muad'Dib, and the third book
yeah.
is The Prophet. So it should be a trilogy. And I think the current adaptation by a Canadian director, and I'm Canadian. He's Denis Villeneuve, I believe is his name. He's a
Mhm.
great director. He's doing it as 2 movies, and Dune Part Two is coming out later this year, I guess.
Oh, that'd be
What
good.
what,
Yeah.
what did you think of it? Have you seen
I
it?
yeah, the first one I found just uninspiring. It wasn't bad, but I just didn't
It
have
wasn't
the
bad.
pizzazz. It didn't have the pizzazz as David Lynch's one, and
No,
that was my only commentary about that one. It didn't. It's hard to transfer, I think, the book Dune to a movie, and
it's almost impossible. You need
because
someone
there's a
really
lot of
talented to do it.
backstory and everything, and
Yeah,
how do you get that in? I know in the movie in 1984 version, David Lynch actually did a lot of narration,
he did.
explaining, trying to do. Yeah, remember the lady explaining like, "Oh, I'm the daughter of the emperor, and it was the year 10,000 whatever." So yeah,
Princess Ireland. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
They had
yeah,
a lot of the inner monologue that maybe we didn't
yeah.
really
You gotta
script
love
that
that
well.
inner monologue on the screen. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
But what's interesting is the Harkonnen,
Yeah,
the Harkonnen, the Frank Herbert got that name from a phone book. It was like the
really.
Finnish name, apparently.
Oh,
He
I didn't
looked
know
it up
that.
and he found that name, and it's a perfect name. And I think
Yeah,
it's kind of related to Turkish languages because the heroes in the book, the Atreides, were kind of like the Greeks, and the Harkonnens were like the Turkish Empire, the Ottoman Empire, and the emperor himself with his Sardaukar troops who were blonde hair and blue eyed.
yeah.
It was kind of an homage to the Janissaries of the Turkish
Oh
Empire,
yeah.
who are Balkan people from
Hmm.
Southern Europe that the Ottomans took as children to train as warriors. And a lot of them were blonde hair and blue eyed. So the Sardaukar in the Dune novel were kind of based on these blonde hair, blue eyed super warriors. That was a
Right.
interesting theme as well.
Yeah, no, there were some good themes on there, and I thought the religious theme was interesting too, and how they had that.
Absolutely. Yeah, yeah. Not only Islam, but also Christianity and
Yes,
Judaism, the idea of
yeah,
the Messiah, the
right,
Paul Atreides is the Messiah, Muad'Dib, the religious
yes,
leader. That was that made the novel so much better, and it won the Hugo Award. I think
yes,
it co another novel won it at the same time, but he won a lot of science fiction awards at that time.
he did.
And
Yeah,
it was I think it came out like in the mid 60s. I actually have
someone
the
said
original
1965. I saw in the chat.
1965, but I
Yeah.
think the original version of the story was in a magazine called Analog from 1963.
Oh,
And
okay.
in an estate sale, I actually got copies of the original version of it in the Analog magazine, which
Wow.
which is very prized collection in my library. I really like
Yeah,
having
that is cool.
these magazines, and they have incredible illustrations by Paul Schoenhauer, who did the illustrations for the Illustrated Dune. So I mean, I can go on and on for hours about Dune. I love it
Yeah,
so much. It's so incredible. But
it
I don't want
is.
to co-opt your time, Paul.
No, well, thank you
I'm
for
glad that
calling
you're a
in.
fan. I'm glad
Yeah,
that you're a
thank you
fan.
for calling in. All
Thank you
right,
so much.
bye bye. Timothy called in us. We don't have my splitter here, so Sasha couldn't hear, but he was just talking about the themes of Dune, and he's a big
Timothy, the
fan.
guy that used to call in.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's nice. You
yeah,
haven't seen him in a long time.
yeah. It was good. So he's a big Dune fan, and he talked a little bit about Star Wars and stuff. And
Yeah,
uh,
sorry I don't have much to contribute. I don't really know much about Dune. Like I've seen that movie and I read like 100 pages of that book. So
yeah,
I
you
don't
fell
really
asleep in the
know.
movie,
Well,
so
not through the whole movie. I
yeah,
like nodded off like at a part of it because I don't know.
yeah. I
Just tired.
yeah, and so yeah, there's only so much you can contribute. I understand. So it was. I liked how the book was in depth. It had religious themes. It had the political themes. They were kind of a feudal system, which is interesting. And they had the houses and the emperor, and then you had this how they got around space. Uh, how do you get to the different star systems? Because it's so light years. How do you do that? And they had the space guild they could fold the fabric of space and time, so you could just kind of, without moving, be in a new location. And they did that via the spice. And in a sense, the worms became on Dune almost like revered creatures, and they, when they died, I think they became the spice, and that there was kind of a life cycle there. So it it was pretty good
So why
on
was that guy all diseased? Did they go into that?
Harkonnen. He was just like an evil man that was, yeah,
Because they
that
were
was
like
gross.
put like injecting him with stuff,
They did, and it was
but they
really
never said
gross.
what was wrong with him in the book or anything.
I don't really remember. But yeah, he was like a big fat man that would actually have to float everywhere, and he was like a gluttonous and into the, like, a lot of perverted sex and stuff, which was interesting because homosexuality was put in that category back in the 60s. That's what they had him as at. And even in this version, they kind of showed that. And so that happened. And so, hey, I got Moron in, and hey, sorry, I wish I had my splitter so you could listen too, but sorry. Unless you want to listen to one of these.
It's fine.
All right. Hey, Moron. Hey, Moron, you there? Yeah, go ahead.
I'm here. I'm here. There were just two themes I wanted to touch on really
Yes.
quick. I don't want to take too much of your time. The first thing, my favorite thing about Dune is white boys with knives. All right, the knife fights when I
Oh,
was a kid watch it was so cool. It's like I want to have a knife and fight like that guy.
yeah.
I watched it when I was young. It was really
And
cool.
how they explained that, because everything was high tech, is they had these shields that they wore that, if like something that went faster than a certain speed, it would explode everything or create a huge explosion. So you couldn't use like bullets or normal laser weapons. It kind of brought everyone back to swords and knives when you wore the personal shield.
And I thought that was really cool, and that kind of inspired my knife hobby as an adult. The
And
second thing
didn't
is
Paul have, getting back to the knife? Didn't he have a knife shaped on like one of the teeth of the worms? I thought too. That was pretty cool.
I don't know. I don't know. I didn't go
I
that deep
think so,
into
if
it.
I remember that. When the worms had all those teeth, and I think the Fremen, that was like real prized that they had a tooth from one of the worms, because the worms were huge, so they could fashion it into a knife.
And the second thing was, as I got older and studied more about religion and more about Christianity and Catholicism, is that one of the things that Mohadib was the man that could be two places at once. And something the saints did was something called bilocation, where they could be two places at once. So he drew from Christianity as well, from the prophecy of Mohadib or whatever his name was,
Yes.
with that bilocation.
I didn't realize that. So he could be in two locations. I didn't remember that. And I know he could have visions of the future, and it was interesting. I didn't read the rest of the series, but I turned it really kind of went dark. That the whole prophecy went bad, and they became basically like space terrorists, the Fremen. So that I'll have to read the rest of the series.
But that's all I had.
All right. Well,
The
thank you,
white boys
Moran.
with knives.
Thank you for calling in. All right. So yeah, and if you guys want to call in, just join the Gumroad. That helps. So. And usually we have a splitter so Sasha can hear, but we usually don't have people call in. So that was good. So I think there's a lot of guys, especially, like this book. And the movie, they had the Sting was a famous actor. He was a singer, but he was in there, and I thought he played a good role. And Patrick Stewart was in there from Star Trek. And he was, the cats were fighting.
There were a lot of people in it, really. The dude
Yeah.
from what's that guy's name? Dean Stockwell, the guy from Quantum Leap was in it.
Yeah.
Paul's never seen Quantum Leap.
I haven't. I
That's
heard
such a
that's
good
good.
show, Mr. I Love Science Fiction.
I'll have to check that out. Yeah. So I heard a lot of good things about that.
Cats are all upset.
Yeah, they're having their cast fights. So all these animals get they get on each other's thing.
They don't like each other. Buddy's stalking her.
Yeah, too close together, I guess, or something.
Buddy, stop.
Yeah. Let's see here. So I definitely, if they re-release the movie, if you get it. Sorry guys, we're gonna fight here. I know.
Knock it off.
So Yeah.
Now they got Button all excited too.
Yeah, Button try to get him on because they're crazy.
She's crazy too.
I know. So that's about all I had. Did you have anything else, Sasha?
Not really. I mean, it was entertaining. It was, I don't know. It was kind of neat they had David Lynch do it because, like you said, if you didn't read the book, you kind of had to figure out what was going on. Whereas that's kind of like half of David Lynch's films.
Mhm.
Are you trying to figure out what's going on? So it seemed like he was the perfect guy to direct that movie.
Oh, Tim was saying that Star Wars. What are your thoughts? Because you obviously saw Star Wars.
Well, I've seen the first three, and then I saw the prequels, and then
The idea was that Lucas got a lot of his ideas from Dune, not the movie, but the novel. But I don't know. They seemed quite different, really, to me. Did you see the similarities? I know Tatooine was a desert planet, and Dune,
Yeah, I'm trying to think what would be.
and Luke, kind of the
he
hero.
was smart, like
But he was. I didn't really get the. Well, I suppose you could say
trained?
the religious prophecy. Maybe the Jedi was kind of like that. I just thought Dune was a little bit deeper than Star Wars.
Yeah,
with all
well,
those,
for sure.
yeah.
Because didn't you say Star Wars was based on kind of like those serial novels,
Mhm.
like back in the 50s? And
Yeah, George
wasn't
Lucas just
supposed to
wanted
be
to do
that
a
deep.
fun,
Right.
where there's cliffhangers and there's this action pace, and I think that was the goal. So, and that's not. I'm not trying to put down Star Wars. I love this, the old series before it's been ruined by
Right.
feminism, but the old stuff I really loved. I mean, you can love different movies even though they're very different.
Yeah, I do. I like all
And
kinds of
so I
stuff.
loved it. I like Dune, and I do this. Let me see here. Rams, what is the top three books you would recommend? Also, Sasha, what are your top three movies from the 90s? I'll have Sasha go first. What are your top three movies from the 90s?
From the 90s. Well, I like Boogie Nights.
Boogie Nights, yeah.
I don't know. I need to think about it. Can't you go first?
Well, the three books I would recommend, I always get stuck with that. I should have a list. I did, okay, just top of my head, and I don't know if these are my favorite books all time. I love War and Peace, and I know that sounds geeky and stupid, but I don't mean
No,
to
I've
sound
heard that's really
pretentious.
good.
It's actually a good book.
My friend Mark said he
It
reads that
it
every
is.
5 years. That's one of his favorite books.
I loved War and Peace. Another one totally different, Civil War II by Thomas Chittum. He really explained a lot of the difference between a nation and an empire, and he's kind of was prophetic what was happening to this country. So I'd recommend that one. And what else? Let me see some other great book. I like Slaughterhouse-Five by Kurt Vonnegut Jr. That was about the bombing of Dresden. He was there. Those are three off the top of my head. I don't know if they're my favorite three. Those just popped to my head. So, and didn't you like in the 90s movie that vampire one? Was that the 90s or 80s? Lost Boys?
That's 80s.
80s.
See,
Okay.
the 80s would be so much easier than the 90s. I'm trying to. I like Pulp Fiction, but I know
Yeah.
it's overrated. I mean, when it came out, there weren't really a lot of movies
Yeah.
like that. There wasn't any movies like that I had seen.
Right.
That's kind of why I like Boogie Nights. It was kind of like that, just a different kind of movie. That was very entertaining. I like The Virgin Suicides. I guess that came out in '99. Interview with the Vampire was good. I'm just trying to think the '90s. Because when I list my favorite movies, most of them are from the 80s.
Mhm.
90s. I don't know. That's something I'd have to think about. Because I know there were some good movies in the 90s too.
Yeah. And Timothy also talked, you didn't hear, Sasha, about that new version of Dune that they're coming out with the second part.
Oh.
Brandon and I watched it here. I forget. Was
Yeah,
it
I
ever
remember.
released? Was it COVID? So they just released it to.
Yeah,
Something
I don't
like
know.
that.
It might have been in the theaters. It was like right after all the COVID stuff started. Wasn't it like 2021 that it came out?
Yeah. Like I said, I think it was more faithful to the novel, but it lost something.
Well,
It didn't
Mosca
have
said the same thing.
Yeah.
He said he thought it was kind of boring. He said it
Yeah.
was almost too perfect or something.
And
Like where the David Lynch one had style.
it had style, and it just had that vibe about it that I think with what you could do with the movie. And Timothy said that David Lynch, he didn't care for the movie. I mean,
Oh, he didn't like it?
No, after he made the movie, he's like, it was not one of his favorite movies he made. He just kind of he would have done things differently or whatever.
Yeah.
But
They
I
might
don't,
have cut a lot. Brandon said he figured they probably cut a lot of it
probably,
too.
yeah.
I wonder if there's like a director's cut or if you got it on
You
Blu-ray.
know, it could be. We could have been cut up too. Because
Yeah.
sometimes what happens, you have a movie that's really great, but then it's just chopped to bits, and then
Well, a lot of times the movie company will do that.
they do,
Like somebody
yeah.
will make a great movie and then they'll take a lot of their stuff out of the movie.
There was some famous movie. I'm kicking myself. I don't remember it, but it got drastically rated difference if you got the uncut version. If you got the cut version, the movie didn't even make sense. I forget what movie it was. I'll have to look
Oh,
that
I
up.
know a '90s movie that I really like.
What's that?
Goodfellas.
Oh, Goodfellas was
Like
good.
that's
Yes,
one from the '90s.
I like that too. That was a good movie. I did. Oh, okay, that was the '90s. Yeah. But so a lot of times that can happen too, where the director has his vision and they just, oh, we got to get down on time or something.
Wasn't Legend like that? I want to say that was kind of different too. That they cut that.
Yeah,
I don't know. You've never seen Legend, though, have you?
I don't
With
think so.
Tom Cruise. It's about the unicorn and Tim Curry's in it. It's really good. It was a oh, what's his name? No, I can't think. The guy that did Blade Runner did it. Ridley Scott.
Yeah. Well, they have a list here of 12 movies that are drastically improved by the director's cut.
Oh, is it Apocalypse Now? Maybe?
That's a lot better too. But Apocalypse Now, even with the regular movie, was good. But
I
that
saw the director's cut, I believe.
Return of the King was supposed to be was a lot better with the director's cut. Almost Famous.
That was a good movie.
I enjoyed that. It was just a sweet movie. I enjoyed that.
I
Waterworld.
never saw Waterworld, but
I heard bad
people
things
said it
about
was
it.
good. Well, remember in Cable Guy, that was the thing. Jim Carrey was just
Yeah.
like, I don't care what they say, that movie ruled. And Brandon liked it. That's a good 80s, 90s movie that I love, but it's probably not ranked that high as Cable Guy and Dumb and Dumber. But if we're talking about like comedies,
Yeah.
Blade
Runner.
Runners, isn't that's kind of different?
I think that's what I think Blade Runner, the director's cut, is so much better. Makes what
Yeah.
they said. I think that was the one I was thinking of.
Kingdom of Heaven. I've never seen that.
Once Upon a Time in
I never
America.
saw that either. Isn't that Scorsese?
Yeah.
Did he do that?
Yeah.
I should see that because isn't that a gangster movie? I like gangster movies. Yeah. Jewish gangsters during the Prohibition era.
I guess it was originally about 4 hours, 4.5 hours, so they
Wow.
cut it so much, and then
Sometimes I wish they would just not cut the movies and just make them longer and they could have an intermission. That's what they did with Gone with the Wind. And I saw My Fair Lady a couple weeks ago in the theater and they did that too. They had an intermission.
mhm. And they said they cut it so much that you couldn't even follow the movie.
With
Well,
Once Upon a Time in America.
Yeah, so if you got the director's cut, it's a great movie, but once they cut it up,
It's too bad. Why do they do that? They should just, like I said, release it in 2 movies like Kill Bill or something. Like,
well, they do it. I know why they do it. It's because they're scared that the movie theaters, it's too long. They don't want to bring
well,
it
it's
up.
too bad people don't have attention span.
I know, that's what I hate about that too. So, yeah, that I prefer the director's cut because that's how the director wanted it to be. So I'm not quite sure why David Lynch. I think it might have been that
It
situation
was
too.
he probably had no choice over like
Yeah.
them cutting it.
Yeah.
Usually, I don't think the directors always have, they don't
Well,
always get to decide.
Like Corey Timothy, and he seems like a huge Star Wars fan and a Dune fan. And I think I heard this. Yeah, David Lynch was under a lot of pressures by the studios because it released in '84, and 7 years prior, Star Wars was released.
Mhm.
And so these suits or executives that really didn't know hardly anything was like, well, you need to make it more like Star Wars.
Oh,
And it's like, but it's a totally
it's not
different.
Star Wars.
I know,
though.
it's a totally different,
Right.
and it's yeah, I guess you can't try to make it like, and it just ruins it.
Well, they shouldn't do that. They do that too much now. Like me and my friend were on the
Mhm.
phone earlier talking about all the sequels coming out. It seems like everything's a sequel now or a remake.
Yeah,
If there's no new ideas, maybe people don't want to see the same thing over and over again. We want to see something different.
it was nice to see this movie too. It didn't really have any political propaganda in it,
No.
which is unusual now.
Yeah.
They'd have to make it about Trump or something.
Right. They probably would.
So, yeah, Harkonnen represents Trump. We're gonna call him Trump. Yeah, that could be, or he's the emperor. Oh, we're gonna growl. Just get out. So
Louise.
yeah,
Rough on her.
yeah, that was the thing. So good question there. Let me just see here if we got anything else here. Yeah. So you have anything else, Sasha?
Not really.
All right. Well, guys, we'll let this end early night. We do these shows based on how much material there is, and we just don't have much tonight. So, but we'll probably see you next Sunday, guys. So thanks a lot. Bye bye.
Bye.